I'm here at Sovereignty Ranch with Dr. Ben Edwards. This is the Food is Medicine Summit. This event has been wonderful. Highly recommend attending next year. Dr. Ben has been one of my absolute favorite speakers, and I asked him if he could share some of the things that he shared at this event with you guys today, and I cannot wait for you to learn from him. He has a podcast. It's called You're the Cure. Check it out. Wonderful information. If you like this today and you want to learn more, go check out his podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Ben.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Food is medicine. Just when you said that, it made me remember I got no education. I got 2 hours of nutrition and 4 years of med school. And most doctors get zero. I think 80% of med schools don't do any. And I got 2 hours, and half of that 2 hours was kind of scaring us about vitamins. But I just thought of that when you said food is medicine. It is.
I had someone tell me that doctors get plenty of nutrition training, so
Nope.
I'd love for you to speak on that.
No.
Yeah.
It simply isn't true, and doctors readily admit this.
Yeah.
For the most part, I believe. I got literally 2 hours. There's an elective lunchtime lecture you could go to if you wanted to on nutrition. I remember it's like 4 weeks long every Wednesday, and there's free pizza, so I went. This was at UT Houston back in 2000. But this cardiologist was showing perfusion scans of the heart pre and post dietary intervention. It was incredible, and the post obviously showed good perfusion. No stents, no bypass. And I asked that doctor, I went into nutrition back then, literally I went for the pizza. But I remember asking him, hey, why are you just on this lunchtime lecture and there's only like 20 kids here? Why aren't you on like the main curriculum? His answer, it's gonna sound bad, but money. He said, my colleagues down the hall, they get 100,000 for a bypass and 10,000 for a stent or whatever it was. So that was one, I tucked that away, I think. Anyways, we go through school, we get taught disease management, nutrition. If that actually worked, they would have taught us that, is what I thought.
How long did you practice conventional medicine?
Roughly 10 years with residency, and then 7 years at Garza County Health Clinic out in West Texas. I was the only doctor in the county at a county clinic. And I wanted to, be like my granddads. They were small town country doctors. That's all I knew. They were MDs. 2 uncles are MDs. Great-great-granddad was an MD. All I knew was MD. I didn't know alternative, holistic. I didn't know what a chiropractor did. I mean, I thought all that was hocus pocus anyways. But honestly, I was just ignorant about it. So I was just doing my thing.
And that was considered an extremely successful practice by standards, right?
Yes, it was.
What standards?
So the Medical Group Management Association, MGMA, they look at the numbers, number of visits, number of procedures, overhead, revenue, all that. And we were ranked in the top 95th percentile of all primary care clinics in America for those numbers. So successful because of the revenue. And you do that with volume. So 7-minute visits was my average, and I would do procedures. You get paid more for things you do with your hands. So I was broadly trained to do procedures, and I did house calls and took care of the nursing home, the county jail, the Friday night football game, team doctor, all the extra stuff. So it was a lot, but mostly it's volume. You do the volume, and all you can do in a volume clinic, which is the standard American clinic, is label the patient symptom, label it. I call it now. I didn't realize this is what I was doing. Now I see medical school is clearly teaching us a matching game. If you have a headache or chest pain or belly pain or whatever, you're going to ask a few detail questions, maybe run a few tests, but your goal is to match those symptoms that the patient's telling you with a name, a label. And once the match is made, the game is over. And literally that's it. I mean, there's only so many headaches. There's a migraine, there's a tension headache, a cluster headache, a sinus headache. I mean, pretty much that's your headache categories. So you just match to the category, and then there's a pharmaceutical for migraine. There's a different type of pharmaceutical for tension, and that's it. I mean, it's called disease management, and doctors will tell you this. Ask your doctor. Were you trained to manage asthma, manage diabetes, manage hypertension, manage acid reflux, manage ulcerative colitis? And they'll say, yeah, of course, because if you don't manage it, then the patient's going to suffer. If you have a migraine headache, that hurts, and you're going to suffer, so take an Imitrex.
And ask them if they can reverse it, or how many patients they've reversed it in?
0.
Yeah.
We're not trained to reverse disease. So doctors I assumed, if you could reverse chronic disease, migraines, ulcerative colitis, lupus, fibromyalgia, all this stuff, diabetes, then they would have taught us that in school, obviously. So this conversation is crazy to even be having, because if all that were true that you're saying, they would have taught me that in school. The American Diabetes Association would be doing commercials on TV every night telling you you can reverse type 2 diabetes very easily. You don't hear that, so therefore it must not be true.
So your clinic success was measured in financial outcome.
Yeah.
Was there any aspect of patient outcome that's considered part of how they determine success?
Zero. It was all financial outcomes. Now, as I was leaving, this was around 2011, 2012, they were starting to bring in, hey, if you have X percentage of your patients on a statin to get their total cholesterol under a certain level, or X percentage, of vaccinated, compliance with the vaccine schedule, X percentage with an A1C managed to a certain level, that was just starting to come in. So there may be some of that now. But even that, those are standards that don't produce the best outcomes.
Good symptom management or effective
Right.
symptom management.
Right. I mean, there was a study came out, I believe this was in 2020, and I can get it to you, in Journal of American College of Cardiology, and they looked at statins. That's to lower cholesterol. That's our number one tool in our toolbox to try to prevent heart disease, the number one killer in America. It reduces heart attacks by about 1%. Total mortality, 0.8%. So the best tool in our toolbox for the number one killer gets us about a 1% benefit, all cause, absolute risk reduction. Heart disease used to not even be in existence. There were no such things as heart attacks. They weren't invented yet.
Yeah.
1912 was the first heart attack ever recorded in this country in the medical literature.
Now, people are going to tell you, people are going to argue, people didn't live long enough to have heart attacks.
False.
Yeah.
People, if they made it to their 5th birthday, then they lived a normal lifespan, 70, 80 years. That's very clear. If you got to dig a little bit, because if you just Google what's life expectancy in 1900, it's going to say like 40 years old. Well, that was because the infant mortality rate was 50%.
Yeah.
Meaning if you had twins, one of those is going to be dead by the time they're 5 years old, and one will live to be 80. That averages to 40. So you got to dig into that more. And just like every statistic, you got to dig for the truth. But the truth is there was no heart attacks. And now it's the number one killer, and the best thing we have for it reduces that by 1%. It's crazy. So pre-World War II, we're the healthiest country in the world. But that 50% infant mortality in 1900 dropped, 98 to 99% drop in infant mortality from 1900 to 1950. And vaccines didn't come in till later. And Harvard, Mayo, and Hopkins have all published on this. They looked at that drop, that 99% drop, and they said it was refrigeration, sanitation, nutrition. We cleaned up the environment. Germs didn't go anywhere. They're still around. But because we have a healthier host, the host can deal with that and defend itself. Now, can you add a vaccine on top of that healthy host and maybe get a little bit more? Well, that's another discussion for another day. But bottom line, the health of Americans started to improve when we got better nutrition, sanitation, refrigeration, all of that. But since 1910, when allopathic medicine became the standard, this is one thing I didn't know. Homeopathic medical schools predated modern allopathic medical schools. There were 5,000 homeopathic graduated medical school physicians in this country in 1900.
Yeah.
And then the Flexner report comes out in 1910 and says homeopathic, herbalist, naturopathic, all these other healing modalities need to be standardized into allopathic, pharmaceutical, treat a symptom management, disease management model. And it's been 120 years since then, and our health outcomes have just deteriorated. We have the highest infant mortality rate, the highest maternal mortality rate, and the highest overall mortality rate. We die younger than any other country. Our babies die more than any other industrialized country. Our moms within 42 days of delivery die more by far, not even a close second. We have horrible outcomes. And so if we should be, I believe, an outcome-driven medical profession.
Absolutely.
And if we can step back and just look at outcomes, what produces health? Symptom or disease management doesn't do that. It knocks a number down on the paper, but it doesn't translate to health. It doesn't translate to all-cause mortality risk reduction. And I didn't know that.
In about a decade of conventional practice, how frequently were you able to reverse chronic disease?
Never.
Not once.
No. When you manage a problem, the problem's still there. It's just being managed. I'm keeping that A1C close to a 7. Well, there's a study out of Mayo Clinic, I believe this is 2013, Victor Montoya, and he looked at that management. If your A1C is an 8 versus a 7, that's a 3-month blood sugar average. Is that tighter management produce better all-cause mortality reduction and heart attack and stroke and dialysis and retinopathy and all the? No, it didn't.
And at the time, if a patient had come to you and said, I want to reverse my chronic disease, what would you have said or thought?
That's not possible. This is a disease. Once you have a disease, you have it forever. And the best we can do, you can do nothing and suffer and die early, or you can do these prescriptions and manage it and be better. That was not really accurate. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
But when you really look at all-cause mortality reduction in all the different things we do, all of it's around a 1%, whether it's Alzheimer's, stroke, heart attack, diabetes, you name it across the board.
Wow.
Cancer, cancer's a little different if you catch it early, stage 1, cutting it out and throwing it in the trash can, yeah, but once it is spread, chemotherapy, this was a study out of Australia, the contribution of chemotherapy to 5-year survival was about 2.1%.
Wow.
The tricky part, doctors get told a number that's not true. There's a statistical gymnastics term called relative risk reduction. Like Lipitor will give you a 36% reduction in heart attack and stroke. But there's an asterisk on that 36, even though the little drug rep comes in with a nice poster with this real big bar that says 36%, the asterisk though, you gotta go dig. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, this means that 3% of the patients on placebo had a heart attack and 2% of the patients on Lipitor had a heart attack.
Yeah.
So where I grew up, 3 minus 2 is 1.
Yeah.
And JAMA and American College of Cardiology, it's in there.
Yeah.
Doctors don't have time to go find this.
Yeah.
Doctors are busy. So my success was I was busy, so revenue was there. But outcomes were poor, really, really poor.
So what changed your mindset on this?
What changed my mind was a very, very smart and kind of arrogant and stubborn doctor that I divinely met. I believe it was divine appointment. And he came at me with some hard truth that I, of course, pushed back against. But basically, in a nutshell, he said, there's no such thing as diseases, they're all consequences. Then he challenged me and said, you need to be a good doctor and dig, be a detective. If these are all new diseases over the past 100 years, there were 100 autoimmune diseases now. It wasn't because we weren't living long. But he encouraged me, challenged me to dig, and ultimately what he linked for me that kind of was an aha moment was inflammation. When he said there's no such thing as diseases, I grabbed my list of patients from that day, all 40 of them, went right down the list. Every single disease that I named, from fibromyalgia, ulcerative colitis, hypertension, depression, ADD, autism, all of them, he said, no, they're consequences. Go take every one of those individual names of diseases and put it with the word inflammation and do a Google search on that. And you'll see 1 million hits. And he was right. Inflammation's the common denominator of all chronic disease. So then he said, again, be a good doctor. Dig, be a detective, and figure out where's inflammation coming from. Because if that's a common denominator, don't you think if you could reduce that inflammatory process, maybe what I now know is smoke from the fire, all this smoke will start to clear up a little bit if you can turn down that fire. And what we get trained in medical school to do, I give this analogy a lot, is like you're sitting on your living room couch tonight watching TV, the living room starts to fill up with smoke. Okay, you can hop up off that couch, turn on the fans, open the windows, open the front door, and get that smoke cleared out so you can breathe. I mean, I think your husband's a firefighter.
Yeah.
I think most people succumb in house fires to the smoke inhalation. I'm not against clearing the smoke. Take your Imitrex, take your metformin, take whatever you need for your ulcerative colitis to knock that smoke out. Don't go sit back down on the couch
You keep doing the same thing.
and the fire's burning in the kitchen. You're gonna suffer and you're gonna die early. And when he connected that inflammatory thing, that was a light bulb moment. And of course, inflammation's coming from too many free radicals and not enough ATP. That's the carburetor in the cell. That's the energy producing factory in the cell. And our cells have hundreds or thousands of these per cell. And if you're making too much black smoke coming out the tailpipe and not many miles per gallon, you don't get cellular energy production. Too many free radicals. Those free radicals not only damage your carburetor even more, damage the DNA. Turn on that BRCA gene. BRCA gene's been around a long time. All these genes for Alzheimer's, heart disease, all these genes are there. They're books on a bookshelf. They're closed. You don't have to open up and read them. Keep them closed. Those free radicals go turn on those oncogenes, we call them. Alzheimer's gene, the heart attack gene, all these genes. So genes are secondary. They're not the driver. It's this inflammation. Well, why does this carburetor produce so much inflammation? Free radicals, oxidative stress. Because of the inputs. It's that simple. That it's hard for doctors who are so highly trained and smart to believe. It was hard for me to believe. It took a year of him arguing with me until ultimately he said, I'm done arguing with you. Send me your 10 sickest patients. I'm just going to show you.
I love this story.
And I have plenty of those because he said, Ben, do you have some patients that, you know, when you see them on your schedule or you see them through the front window of your check-in in the lobby, you kind of cringe on the inside, even though you're a sweet guy and you're nice and you're going to be polite to them, but on the inside, you're like, oh man, Miss Smith is here with her fibromyalgia or her lupus or whatever, and she's been to every specialist. She's been to UT Southwestern, she's been to Mayo, she's been to all the places. and she's no better, and she's back in your office looking for help. Those kind of patients that you have nothing for, send them. And I had plenty of those. The worst ulcerative colitis, worst lupus, worst fibromyalgia, worst depression, worst diabetic. And these are my patients. For 7 years in this tiny little town, I knew them. They were my neighbors, went to church with them. My kids went to school with them. I prescribed these meds. They're not lying. They're not faking it. These are real people with real problems, real suffering, and had been to all the specialists. And it would, over a matter of months, all of them came back well.
Amazing.
Inflammation gone, and when inflammation is gone, then all this smoke, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, pain and bloody diarrhea from my colon, all those symptoms go into, we'll say, remission, because you can't use the word cured, because FDA has a monopoly on that word. If it's not an FDA approved thing, you can't say cured. That's another discussion, but into remission, which granted, I actually believe that, because if you start doing you start living a standard American life again, you're going to rev all that inflammation back up, and the joints and the colon and the blood sugar and all the things are just going to get out of order
It'll all
again.
come back.
Yeah, it's so simple though. It's too simple for doctors to get, honestly. And saying that in love, I assumed American Diabetes Association, American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, the AMA, the FDA, the CDC, if all the things I'm saying are true, you can reverse disease. If that were true, all those people would be saying it, teaching it, medical school would be teaching it. That's what I thought, and that's what I pushed back in. There's no way you one little doctor in Amarillo, Texas, who's telling me type 2 diabetes is totally reversible every time, is right, and all these endocrinologists are wrong. There's no way. And what got it for me was those 10 patients. Now that's called an anecdotal story. One 72-year-old guy, he was a former coach, 300 plus pounds on 9 medications, 3 diabetes pills, his blood sugar's still high, and it's time for insulin. And this was a coach. I said, Coach, I'm sorry, but your sugar's out of control. These 3 agents aren't working, the 3 pills, we gotta do shots. Doc, I'm not doing it. I'd rather die. I'm not living anyways. I'm in my recliner. I've got neuropathy. I can't get out of my chair hardly. I'm suffering. I might as well be dead. I'm not doing shots. I said, Coach, come on. And then I mentioned, well, there's this one doctor I just met. He doesn't even believe in diseases like diabetes. You want to go see him? He sounds kind of crazy. But that coach, he was on, yeah, where is he? How can I see him? And that coach came back about 4 months later and off all his meds except for a half of 1 blood pressure pill, sugar, no, A1C, normal, unbelievable. And came back with a tear in his eye and said, thank you for sending me to that doctor because I have my life back. I'm out in the garden, picking the garden with my grandkids. And when that happened, and those other 9 patients, they were all well.
And I guess at that point, that's something you can't ignore or deny anymore.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
There's a way to just try to, this cognitive dissonance sets in. Because right then you're faced with some big questions of, whoa, if this happened with this guy, could it happen with the next guy and the next and the next? These are anecdotal. I'm not supposed to even listen to these guys. But I knew in my spirit, man, this is the truth. Whatever this guy's saying and doing, it produced outcomes I've never seen before. And I can't deny it. And I went to med school to help people get well. And just because med school didn't teach me how to get outcomes like this, I need to explore it a little more. The problem with this way of doing it is you need to talk to and listen to patients.
So in over a decade of conventional medicine, you reversed chronic disease 0 times.
Right.
And now with your integrative practice, how often are you reversing chronic disease?
All the time. But I want to say it's not me doing it.
How often are you able to help patients reverse their chronic disease?
We teach. The Latin root of doctor is teacher. Doctors need to get back to teaching. The founder of Hopkins Med School, Sir William Osler, doctors will know this name, Sir William Osler, famous founder of Hopkins, founder of modern medicine, said the first duty of the physician is to teach the patient not to take medicine.
Wow.
Take medicine when appropriate, take it temporarily, clear that smoke, but don't go sit back down on the couch. So expectation in our clinic now is everyone versus their chronic disease. That's the expectation, and that is what we see. And there's certain things, metabolic syndrome it's called, so cholesterol, blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, that kind of grouping, that reverses almost 100% of the time.
Amazing.
Autoimmune disease, a little trickier, but vast majority of the time reverses too. The caveat on it is stress.
Yeah.
Stress will keep the immune system dysregulated. Stress will keep the GI system dysregulated. And 80% of your immune system is in the gut-associated lymphatic tissue. So if your GI's out of balance and your immune's out of balance, it's hard to get autoimmune back. You can get it done. takes more effort. You got to go deeper. You got to get more to what's driving that stress.
So what you just said about stress being an issue reminded me that the most profound thing that I heard from you this weekend that I hadn't heard before, and I don't often even hear in integrative and holistic medicine, you were talking about the pillars of health and what you find to be the most important pillar of health.
So we teach 4 pillars: nutrition, hydration, movement, and then peace, and true peace. I believe that mitochondria I was talking about, the carburetor that takes fuel and burns it for energy, that mitochondria, if it's under a state of stress, or even not just stress, just tension, heavy, not at ease, it will not produce.
Dis-ease.
Yes, it will be diseased. It won't produce optimal energy. It'll and produce too much free radicals. And it's a personal spiritual matter, in my opinion, to have true peace. There's a connection with God who created us. And I believe, because the word says, before you're in your mama's womb, God knew you. And that word knew you is really interesting. Knew you, set you apart, and put a calling on your life. And that call is without recall. It's in you and it can't come out. God put it in it. It's who you are. And when you really get who you are, it's an identity thing. And it's a piece of God's character and nature that he puts into each individual person. There's a unique identity. And when you know what that is and you just walk in that thing, peace and joy will attend you. But you've got to be rightly aligned with that truth of who you are, who God says you are. And there's a uniqueness to you, meaning you need to be able to hear that. We need to be able to communicate with God who created us, and God is love. And there's a sliver of that character and nature in you. And corporately as the body, when we all come together in our unique identities, it's the word says the hand, the foot, the eye, the ear, we're all different, unique, the body of Christ. But corporately together, that's when we're really going to see some amazing stuff in the earth. But it has to do with being able to trust. Trust this invisible God is really going to be there for me, really going to take care of me. And, it's hard. He's invisible. And we're so left brain, rational, intellectual, black and white Newtonian physics. Prove it to me. It's hard. And ultimately, fear is so powerful. And fear will pull us out of that trust. And fear of provision, fear of protection, fear of disease, fear of death, fear of what people think about me. All these fear pulls you out of that. And ultimately, I believe fear drives us to make decisions that sets us up in an environment, whether it's relational, work, whatever, political, but it causes division. And that's where lack of peace comes from.
Lack of faith, lack of peace, disease.
Yeah. And
amazing.
In my own personal walk with patients and even my mentor, I've seen people eat perfect, move perfect, hydrate perfect. I mean, superfood, super drink, perfect everything. But a lack of true peace. This body is not designed to walk long term in this lack of contentment, lack of true peace. It just won't function. It can't. I mean, you can get a lot done, but ultimately you'll hit a ceiling. So it is a matter of a deeper spiritual matter. And doctors don't speak to that because we're trained actually to divide the physical body up even. If you have a headache, see the neurologist. If you have gut ache, see the gastroenterologist. Joint ache, see the orthopedic. We purposefully divide the physical body in med school. We don't even talk about the soul and spirit. But the word is clear. We are a spirit housed in the flesh with a soul. And if we don't understand the 3 parts and we don't steward those and bring the truth to those 3 parts, we're not going to function optimally. But God designed us, number one, that we can hear his voice and trust him and walk in that. But he designed us to be able to receive this truth that'll set us free so that we can walk all the days of our life on the earth in true health, real health.
I believe that this is the missing piece in most medical systems, including the more holistic, more integrative medicine.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so profound. Hearing that from you has opened my eyes to even when I've not had peace and how it has affected my health.
Yeah. And it's so deep, and we don't have time for it on this discussion probably, but I just want to encourage people, especially doctors, but patients too. It's not to say ignore. Number one, don't even ignore a symptom. It's fine to take an Imitrex. If we're about to do this video and I've got a raging migraine, you pop an Imitrex and it's gone, great. But like I said, with the smoke and the fire, just clear the smoke, but go deeper. And functional, integrative, holistic medicine a lot of times uses herbs and supplements and whatever to treat a symptom.
Yeah.
Let's clear the smoke with some natural things. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. I'm not dogging it. I mean, we do it in our clinic. We do it all. I do pharmaceuticals all the time in my clinic. I do nutraceuticals all the time in my clinic. But I tell every single patient, I can't cure you. All I can do is manage the smoke. You're the only one who can get in the kitchen and put the fire out. It is all personal diet and lifestyle and thinking. And it's huge. If you don't get the thoughts lined up with truth, this mitochondria will not resonate at the highest optimal frequency, and there'll be consequences to that.
That is so empowering for individuals and patients. For a doctor to tell them, I can only help you so much, but I can't do your work,
Yeah.
you can heal yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible.
100%. You're the cure.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
What you're doing is incredibly important. I hope that more doctors out there will open their mind to just the possibility of the truth of this.
Yeah, it's hard. I know I've got other doctors in the family. I've obviously friends I went to med school and residency with. It's hard. I get it, guys. I totally get it. And I try to stay humble, but although I can get fired up at times, because ultimately I'm not here to keep other colleagues liking me. I'm here for the patients.
Well, and it's not arrogance. When
Yeah.
you have seen true healing, it's not arrogance to share about that. You want to tell the world. You want to tell everybody. We need more doctors like this. We need more doctors like you. Your work is so important. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work. I know spreading the truth, especially when you don't have the credential. I know it's hard, but it's mamas and others like you that are just seeking that truth. And when you hear it, it resonates in you. That's your spirit saying, that's it. That's the truth. You don't have to have credentials to hear and see truth and walk in it. So
Just sharing experience.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.